Fad, don't tell people your problems, as every word you share about your struggles becomes ammunition in someone else's hands, and most people aren't aiming to help you heal. There exists a perilous pattern that countless individuals fall into. They believe that by sharing their troubles with others, they discover comfort. However, the reality is that most listeners aren't tuning in to assist you. They're absorbing information to critique you, evaluate you, or weaponize that knowledge later. Your struggles resemble fresh wounds, and when you reveal them to inappropriate people, they don't provide healing. They apply additional pressure. Today, I'll demonstrate why remaining quiet can serve as your most powerful shield. Most individuals don't genuinely concern themselves with your difficulties. They're merely inquisitive. They might grin when you begin speaking, acknowledge you at appropriate moments, and create the illusion that they're engaged in your narrative. Yet, if you observe more carefully, you'll detect something understated. Their attention isn't focused on you. It's concentrated on the data you're supplying. They're recording it, filing it away, and occasionally even distorting it mentally to match the narrative they prefer to construct. Your anguish transforms into a fascinating tidbit for their day, a conversation starter they could relay to another person subsequently. This explains why sharing your troubles with everyone isn't the comfort you imagine it to be. It frequently becomes an open door for them to fulfill their inquisitiveness at your vulnerability's cost. It's not that individuals are fundamentally malicious. It's simply our nature. We're programmed to prioritize our own existence over anyone else's. So when someone hears about your hardships, the truth is their attention commonly redirects to how it connects to them, how it affects their emotions, or how they might utilize this knowledge down the road. And the reality is some individuals will mask this inquisitiveness as genuine concern. They might inquire, how are things going? What's happening? But mentally, they're gathering information, satisfying their desire to know rather than their wish to assist. You must recognize that inquisitiveness differs from empathy. Empathy motivates someone to act for your benefit. Inquisitiveness, conversely, motivates someone to seek information that entertains or educates them. The difficulty is most individuals don't even recognize they're behaving this way. It's instinctive. But once you reveal something, you cannot retrieve those statements. You've surrendered a portion of your existence to someone who might lack the ability or intention to safeguard it. Consider the occasions you've confided in someone only to overhear your own statements echoed back to you later with a different inflection, or shared with someone you never meant to inform. That's what occurs when inquisitiveness masquerades as concern. The details you provide spread, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly, but they travel. And each time they're retold, they lose the background and sincerity you possessed when you initially expressed them. What began as a private truth becomes a public interpretation. When you realize that most individuals are listening for the narrative rather than the resolution, you begin to recognize the importance of keeping certain matters close to your heart. Not because you're distant, not because you distrust everyone, but because you're intelligent enough to shield the aspects of yourself that are still mending. If someone is truly positioned to assist, they will help without requiring every detail. You don't need to unlock every room in your mind for someone to offer you a light. Quietness in this context isn't about excluding people, it's about screening. It's about questioning yourself. Will this person utilize what I share to help me advance, or will they simply file it as another piece in their collection? When you approach your conversations with this consciousness, you'll discover that you speak less but communicate more. You'll cease throwing fragments of yourself into the hands of those unprepared to handle them with care. Because ultimately, it's far preferable to be recognized for your resilience than for your hardships. When you openly share your difficulties with people, you must understand that you're also influencing how they perceive you. Human beings quickly categorize rapidly define others with basic labels. And the unfortunate reality is that the label they select for you will frequently be based on your most vulnerable moments. You might possess countless strengths, but if you consistently present yourself through the perspective of your troubles, that's what will remain in their memory. You become the person who's constantly experiencing something, or the individual who appears unable to maintain stability. It's unfair, but it's genuine. People seldom invest time to examine the complete picture of who you are. They retain impressions, and those impressions are constructed from what you choose to expose. If the initial thing they learn about you is your difficulty, they will connect that difficulty to your identity. Even if you conquer it later, that original image is challenging to remove from their thoughts. This is why it's risky to habitually discuss your troubles without careful consideration. You are essentially composing the narrative they will perpetually maintain about you. Imagine it this way. Your existence is an artwork filled with colors, illumination, and dimension. But when you continuously discuss your struggles, you're requesting people to focus solely on the dark brushstrokes in one corner of the canvas. Eventually, they cease noticing the brilliant sections. They stop appreciating the harmony of the entire picture. All they perceive is the darkness you've taught their vision to seek. And gradually, this alters not only how they view you, but also how they interact with you. When someone perceives you as an individual defined by troubles, their expectations for you diminish. They might cease including you in certain opportunities, believing you're not in the appropriate frame of mind. They might address you with sympathy instead of respect. They might maintain distance. Assuming your life is a perpetual storm, they don't want to become caught in. Without realizing it, you've permitted your struggles to restrict how the world engages with you. What's even more hazardous is how this influences your own self-perception. When you're repeatedly confronted with a reflection of yourself through others' eyes, one that's grounded in struggle, you begin to accept that is your entirety. You internalize the label. You start carrying it like a burden, even when the original problem disappears. That's how people imprison themselves in cycles of restriction. They embrace the identity that formed during a difficult period in their life. You must be deliberate about the image you create of yourself in others' minds. This doesn't mean feigning perfection or concealing your humanity. It means selecting wisely what you disclose and to whom. If someone needs to understand your challenges to assist you, share it. But if you're speaking merely to unburden yourself without considering the impression it creates, you might be constructing an identity you don't wish to maintain. Your existence contains many chapters, and not all of them should be accessible to everyone. Safeguard the portions of your story that are still being composed, because once you allow the world to define you by one page, they will seldom trouble themselves to read the remainder. Not everyone surrounding you truly desires to witness you overcome your struggles. It's a difficult truth to accept, but if you observe closely, you'll notice it. Some people are quietly more at ease when you're struggling because it makes them feel more secure about their own position in life. Your difficulties become a comparison point that reassures them they're performing better than you. They might not vocalize it, but internally your pain provides them with a sense of superiority. This is why you must be cautious about whom you open up to. On the surface, someone might appear sympathetic, nodding as you speak, even offering some words of consolation. But underneath that, there can be a concealed satisfaction in seeing you down. They might even subtly encourage you to remain there by providing advice that keeps you dependent on them, or by presenting your situation as something you may never truly escape. It's not always malicious in a deliberate sense. Sometimes it's simply the nature of insecurity. When a person doesn't feel complete within themselves, they can feel threatened by someone else's development. So, as long as you remain in a weaker position, they feel secure. You have to recognize these patterns early. Pay attention to how people respond when you make advancement. Do they genuinely celebrate with you, or do they seem to minimize it? Do they become quieter when you're thriving, but more engaged when you're struggling? That's a clear indication. People who flourish on your weakness will often give more attention to your troubles than your accomplishments because it maintains the balance in their favor. When you reveal too much about your struggles to these types of people, you're feeding a quiet hunger they have for you to stay beneath them. Your vulnerability becomes their comfort zone. They will never encourage you to outgrow the very problem that allows them to feel superior about themselves. In fact, they might even plant seeds of uncertainty in your mind, not in an obvious way, but in subtle comments. That's a good idea, but are you certain you can manage it? Or, I'm just concerned you might be taking on too much. They disguise limitation as worry, but it's really a way to keep you in place. This is why discretion is power. The less people know about your personal challenges, the less they can use them, whether consciously or unconsciously, to keep you where you are. When you work on your problems privately, you rob those with hidden motives of their ability to feed off your struggle. And when you emerge having solved them, those same people have no choice but to face your strength. It's important to remember that not everyone is your enemy, but not everyone is your friend either. Some are neutral. Some are quietly supporting you, and others are quietly opposing you. The difference lies in how they feel about your success. The moment you understand that, you stop giving everyone equal access to your inner world. You don't need the validation of people who are secretly invested in your weakness. Protect your growth by limiting their influence, because your victories will be far more powerful when they are revealed to those who never expected you to win. Whatever you consistently discuss, you energize. This is not just an abstract concept. It's a truth that shapes the trajectory of your life. When you repeatedly talk about your problems, even with good intentions, you are keeping your mind and emotions tethered to them. The more you concentrate on what's wrong, the more your energy reinforces that state of being. It becomes the perspective through which you view the world, and eventually the perspective through which the world views you. It's like walking in a circle. Every time you revisit the same complaint, the same frustration, the same pain, you're taking another lap on the same road. And while you might experience a temporary sense of relief from expressing it, you're not actually progressing. You're simply strengthening the emotional connection you have to that problem. Your thoughts, your words, and your feelings begin to revolve around it until it quietly becomes part of your identity. This is why some people never truly escape their struggles. Not because they lack capability, but because they've conditioned their minds to exist inside them. Every conversation becomes a reminder. Every retelling of the story deepens the pattern in their thinking. Soon, even moments of tranquility are overshadowed by the habit of returning to the same troubles in thought and speech. Without realizing it, they've given their problems a permanent place at the table. If you want to transform your reality, you have to be intentional about where your energy flows. That means speaking less about what's wrong and more about what you're constructing, what you're discovering, and where you're heading. This doesn't mean ignoring challenges. It means refusing to let them dominate your attention. Problems need solutions, and solutions require focus. But focus and fixation are not the same thing. Fixation is talking endlessly about the issue, swimming in the emotions it stirs. Focus is acknowledging it, then directing your mind and energy toward the next step forward. This is also about protecting your emotional state. The more time you spend in conversation about your difficulties, the more you relive them emotionally. Your body responds to those repeated feelings as if the problem is happening over and over again. And over time, that repetition can drain your strength and clarity, making it even harder to take decisive action. But when you shift your attention toward action and progress, you begin to rewire your state. You no longer see yourself as someone trapped. You see yourself as someone building a way out. It's a discipline to break the cycle of speaking about your problems. At first, it might feel unnatural to keep them to yourself. You might even feel the urge to share because you want comfort or connection. But comfort without progress is just a soft place to stay stuck. Real growth comes when you learn to channel that energy into change rather than repetition. Every word you speak is a seed. The question is, are you planting seeds of struggle or seeds of progress? Are your conversations watering the problem, or are they feeding the solution? When you choose your words carefully and direct your attention wisely, you will notice something powerful. Your problems start to lose their grip on you. Not because they disappear overnight, but because you've stopped giving them the fuel they need to stay alive. Real strength is often built in silence. The most powerful transformations rarely happen in the open for everyone to see. They happen behind closed doors, in the quiet moments where no applause is given and no validation is received. This is where resilience is forged, away from the noise, away from the opinions, away from the constant pull of other people's perspectives. When you're facing a challenge, it can be tempting to tell others about it in the hope that their support will give you the strength you need. But there's a different kind of strength that comes when you choose to carry that challenge within yourself, not as a burden, but as a training ground. Every day you endure without broadcasting your struggle, you are proving to yourself that you can handle more than you thought. You stop relying on outside encouragement to keep moving, and you start relying on your own discipline and clarity. There is a certain power in letting your actions speak for you. When you are quiet about your battles, you eliminate the distractions that come from other people's reactions, whether those reactions are positive or negative. Praise can inflate your ego and make you feel like you've already achieved something before you truly have. Doubt can plant seeds in your mind that slow you down or make you second-guess your path. Both take your focus away from the real work that needs to be done. Silence removes that interference. It gives you the mental space to concentrate fully on your next step, your next move, your next breakthrough. It's also important to understand that the process of overcoming is rarely glamorous. There will be moments of frustration, uncertainty, and even failure along the way. When you deal with these moments privately, you're free to learn from them without the pressure of an audience. You can adjust your approach without worrying about who's watching. And you can fail without the fear of it becoming part of someone else's opinion about you. That freedom to experiment and stumble without judgment accelerates growth in a way that public struggle rarely allows. And then there's the element of surprise. There's something deeply impactful about working quietly and then emerging one day with undeniable results. It's not about impressing others for the sake of pride. It's about demonstrating what's possible when you commit fully to your path without the constant need to announce it. People may wonder where you've been. But when they see the strength you've built, the skills you've developed, and the challenges you've overcome, they realize you've been building in silence. That revelation carries far more weight than any words you could have spoken along the way. Silence doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean shutting out those who truly care or refusing all support. It means being intentional about what you share, when you share it, and with whom. It means understanding that the most important conversations during a challenge are the ones you have with yourself, checking in on your own commitment, your own progress, and your own vision. In the end, the victories that are born in silence tend to be the ones that last because they were not built for the approval of others. They were built on the foundation of your own will. Peace is not something you stumble upon. It is something you protect. And one of the most effective ways to protect it is through self-containment. When you guard the details of your life, especially your struggles, you give yourself the space to process and heal without interference. You're not pulled into the noise of other people's opinions, judgments, or projections. You're not absorbing their fears or doubts. Instead, you remain in your own lane, working through your challenges in an environment you control. The moment you share too much of your inner world, you invite more voices into your mind than you can handle. Some will mean well, but even good intentions can cloud your clarity. Others will question you, and their skepticism will start to seep into your thoughts. And then there are those who will quietly root for your failure, masking it behind polite words. By containing yourself, you avoid giving any of these voices the chance to disturb your focus. There's a calm strength in knowing that you do not owe your entire story to anyone. You can choose what to reveal and what to keep. You can choose when to speak and when to remain silent. And in that choice lies control. The kind of control that preserves your emotional balance even in the middle of chaos. Because when fewer people know your battles, fewer people can pull you off course. Healing itself is a delicate process. It's like tending to a fragile flame. It needs the right environment to grow stronger. Too much exposure to wind and it will go out. The same applies to your inner world. If you expose it to too many conflicting energies, it becomes harder to maintain the stability you need. Self-containment creates a kind of emotional shield, keeping out the distractions and disturbances that would otherwise weaken your progress. This doesn't mean you never talk about what you're going through. It means you share selectively with people who have proven they can hold your trust, and even then only as much as is necessary. You're not hiding, you're prioritizing your peace over your need for external validation. You're making sure that your healing and growth are driven from within, not swayed by what others think or say. And there's another layer to this dignity. When you keep certain struggles to yourself, you maintain a sense of personal dignity that can be lost when you overshare. You're not defined by the chaos you face because you haven't given the world a front row seat to it. Instead, you're defined by the way you carry yourself, by the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle your own battles without making them public property. Over time, this habit of self-containment becomes a source of inner power. You realize you're less reactive to outside opinions, less shaken by negativity, and more grounded in your own path. Your peace becomes less fragile because it's not built on other people's approval. It's built on your ability to protect what matters most to you. And the truth is, when you guard your inner world, you give yourself the freedom to grow in ways that only you can fully understand.